As you're making your journey to come onto Christ, sometimes it's the experience of others, their example, that help us to make the change. If you look throughout the scriptures, you can find countless examples of individuals because they saw someone or experienced someone else's journey that it made them decide to change. Think about the people who saw Christ do the miracles. Some of them came onto Christ because of that experience. Think about individuals such as Peter or James or John and all the other disciples. They saw others. Their experience also helped others to come onto Christ. In this story today, we're going to hear how Linda had an experience from her brother that helped her to come onto Christ, and how that helped to strengthen her marriage and help her to become a better disciple of Jesus Christ. Hey everyone, welcome to Changing. My name is Donald Kelly and I'm excited to be here with you. I'm excited to be your guide and your host on this podcast as we explore everyday stories from individuals who are coming onto Christ. Some of these individuals are people who are just like you and me. Some of them are younger than us. Some of them are older. The important piece is just that, to know that these individuals are making a change in their life. We're all trying. No one is perfect. And in this story, you're going to hear about Linda's story. Her brother made some decisions. Those decisions led him to coming back to Christ. And exploring and seeing her brother go through that experience strengthened Linda. She was going through a dark time in her life and her marriage. She had some questions. She had some doubts. However, finding Christ again strengthened that connection with Jesus Christ, was able to help her make a change. That helped to bless her and her marriage and help her and her husband enter a whole new sphere, helped her enter a whole new level of their discipleship with Christ. I know you're going to enjoy this story, and I hope you can find someone you can share it with to help them change and come onto Christ. Welcome to the show, Linda.
Thank you, Donald. It's an honor and surprising to be here, to be frank.
Well, I'm excited to have you. And this, as you can tell, and if you heard about this podcast, it's called Changing. And for those who are listening for the first time, we want to explore stories from everyday Christians, everyday people who share their stories about coming onto Christ, because we're all on this journey. We're on this path together. And some may be further ahead, and some may be just beginning. Some may be at the close towards the end of their path. But that journey of coming onto Christ, it all takes different. We all have different experiences. So I'm excited to explore your story today, Linda, and get a chance to learn about you. I would love for folks who are listening to this may be able to get a glimpse into who you are, what you do, and so forth. Would you be willing to share that for a second?
Sure. So I'm a Idaho farm girl. I grew up, born and raised in a very small town, or outside of a small town. Was raised in the town. But the area is Declo, Idaho, and it's outside of Burley, Idaho, which is outside of Twin Falls, which is about 2.5 hours from Boise. So if you know Idaho at all, hopefully I give you some kind of reference there. But that was where I was born and raised, and I was born to goodly parents, amazing parents, who've since passed. So sorry, I don't mean to get emotional. In a family of 7 children. I'm number 5 of 7 children. I grew up in a very performance-oriented family. We were very busy with lots of things and high expectations. And I met and married my husband. Well, I met him at age 17 at college, and we were married I was 18. He's actually from Alaska. We lived in Alaska for a while, and then we moved back west to Salt Lake area. And we were there for many years. And then we moved to South Florida, and we were there for about 13 years. And now we currently live on the coast of Georgia, and we've been here for 5 years. My background is basically, throughout my career, I was always the person that the organizations would put up on the stage and say, share our message and get everybody psyched. So I was the promoter and the communicator of the message. But for the past 8 years, I've had my own business, and I help others reach their potential. And whether that is through their personal image and the way that they communicate, or through their leadership skills, or just through setting goals. That's why I work with individuals and teams on achieving potential and building confidence. So that's who I am. That's what I do.
Well,
I'm
that
a
is
mother.
awesome.
First off, though, I'm a wife first, and then I'm a mother of 3 amazing individuals, and I have 1 grandson. So,
Well, congratulations. It's an awesome accomplishment, the things that you have, and I think this is what makes your story unique because just like a lot of folks probably could relate, where their husbands or wives, and they have family and so forth. And the challenge though is that people will look at us and look at our outward appearance, and they might say, well, they got it all together. And I think when from doing these interviews, we realize we all have our own again path and our own challenges that we had to overcome or we're overcoming. And I hope that I know your message today can help someone. And if you're listening and you're trying to figure out, am I on this path, the right path? How do I continue down this path to become a better disciple of Jesus Christ? I promise you what Linda's going to share today will help you. So Linda, let's go back from your experience back in early 2000s. When we first spoke, you told me about some of the challenges that you were facing at that portion of your life as you were coming closer to Christ, and you had a transformation. Let's talk about what your life was like then. What were you going through on your spiritual journey?
I have had the opportunity to do a lot of traveling, and through that travel, first off, I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I just assumed that would happen, and I didn't have that opportunity. So I was a career-minded, focused woman because I had to be. I basically worked since my oldest was 6 weeks old, and have worked in a career. Well, long about the late 90s, I took a position with an organization that took me traveling across the nation week after week. I was in a different city speaking. And about a year into that, I guess it would have been about 6-7 months into that, my husband and I hit a major crossroad in our life that, quite frankly, I wasn't certain I really wanted to stick with it. I was very angry. And I really, quite frankly, and as I look back now, I realize I was angry at him. I was angry at myself. I was angry at the circumstances, but I was extremely angry at God. And I guess I never realized that. And quite frankly, that was just kind of a realization I've had in the past week, which is kind of an interesting thing. So that's been a long time ago that I really had never admitted that I was angry at God. And I guess maybe one thing that I have to say is that God can handle your anger. If you're angry at him, he has big shoulders. Anyway, I had confided into one of my siblings, my little brother, kind of what I was going through. I was concerned that he would judge me. Judge us. Judge my wonderful husband. And he said something to me. He said, Linda, he said, yeah, I judge that you're an amazing person and that you're human. And he also kind of taught me about hope. But what I didn't realize that when I had shared these things with him, the things that he was going through. And so a couple of years later, as time went on, and I don't exactly remember the exact time, but this little brother had been, he had lost his membership to our church. And he was going through a repentance process. And he became rebaptized, where those promises that he had made would then be reaffirmed, and as if they had never been broken. And as he was going through rebaptism, I was the only person in my family that knew about this. And I was there to see him come out of the waters of baptism. And I realized at that point, because I was really struggling for several years with what I wanted and what was right. And I mean, I knew what was right, but I didn't know how to gel that with what I wanted and what my deepest desires were. And how was I going to be able to trust God again? Well, as he was rebaptized and, made those promises, I had such a strong spiritual experience. And I knew that depending on what I decided, as I used my free agency and the gift of free agency, I knew that I wasn't spiritually where I needed to be in order to make a decision. So it was truly this connection between my heart, my mind, and my spirit. And I knew that there were things that, and I mean, I knew this consciously, but I realized that I needed to change where I was. And I needed to, it wasn't like I had stopped being active, and it wasn't like I was, completely down, a path that I couldn't return from. But I knew that I was dangerously on an edge and hanging in some ways. And as I look back now during those years, I am truly amazed at how the Lord blessed me and protected me, because I was making some really stupid decisions. And because of that, of seeing my sweet little brother go through that experience, I knew that I needed to get right with God. I needed to turn and come back. And as I did that, one of the biggest things that I realized is that I was taking lightly the promises that I had made. And that when I was traveling, while I was traveling, I didn't make attending my church meetings and renewing the promises that I had made a priority. And I realized that needed to change.
Was that because of like the anger at that point? Like, feeling like, what's the use of going to church then if everything that I've done everything right up to this point, and I'm going through this challenge? Was it that type of thing that led, or the justification for not attending church, or what?
I think it was just, I'm traveling and I've got this work to do, so that would be too hard, because I would go into these major cities and I would, there's not a church right here for me to go to, right by, and I'm busy. And then also a lot of times, because I would actually travel on Sunday, I wouldn't get there till later. So I would miss my meetings at home. And then I would just get to the hotel and get going with the work. But I started to be strategic in the way that I looked at that. I would come in on a Saturday night and be sure to hit that meeting before work really began for me on Sunday, because I would set up on Sunday, as then the attendees would arrive first thing Monday morning. And I made it a kind of a challenge. So, I would take subways and trains to find a church. People, strangers, bishop wives, head of the congregation, they would come to the hotel and pick me up and take me to church. I would reach out. And that really made all the difference. And it was kind of interesting too, when that was all happening. I was talking to another brother of mine one day, and he's like, "Linda, you really do need to take the sacrament. You need to make sure you get the sacrament." And I guess I really never put as much importance in that. And so when I started doing that, I realized, wow, this is what I was missing, because it wasn't like I wasn't ever getting the sacrament, because when I would go home, I would go to church. We would take our family to church. But when I was on the road, I saw such a huge difference when I made that a priority, and that softening of anger, which also reflected in my language. And I began to humble myself and be accepting of what God's will was. Because at that point, I still didn't know. I still wasn't certain. And quite frankly, even after that change, I still wasn't really certain what that meant for my marriage. But
why was that?
I'm sorry?
Why was that?
Because I still didn't feel like I really had an answer. And the trust that had been broken was so deep and so severe that it was actually not the first time the trust had been broken. It had been the second time. So it was a path of, I'm just not sure. I knew what my heart wanted, but yet I didn't know if I could live with whatever the consequences. So you have all the free agency in the world, but you cannot choose your consequences.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so that was a big lesson for me, that I knew what I wanted, but you can't change other people.
Wow.
And so you can only change those choices you make, and you can't pick your consequences. You can hope. And I guess that's one of the things that I learned too, is that there is always still hope. And so a couple of years went by, still kind of doing the same thing and getting stronger spiritually. That finally, when a major life change, career change came for me, which basically moved us from the West to the East Coast, to Florida, South Florida. I know what I still wanted. I wanted to have a strong, healthy, happy marriage and relationship. But quite frankly, when we took that move to Florida, I wasn't certain. But it really, meaning I wasn't certain where things would go. It wasn't certain. I was hoping that it would be good, that our relationship would get stronger. But it was really interesting, because that was the other thing too. I realized that with all the traveling that I was doing, it was a blessing in one sense, in that in all those rough, troubled watered years, it was an escape for me. So that was good in one sense, not so good in another sense. But it also, when that process, again, my wonderful husband was taking care of everything at home with our children as they were growing up. Well, then when we were making the move to South Florida, he could not make the move initially with us. And our oldest, Trevor, decided as well that he wanted to finish his senior year in Utah. So the two of them had stayed back, and that was in August. They drove us out to Florida to get settled, Logan and Summer and I. And they left us, and they came back to Utah. Trevor started, getting ready back for school. Doug was back at his work and was hoping for the transfer to come through for his work so that he could then be in Florida. So we had about 3 weeks alone, I had, with just Logan and Summer. I was in a brand new place. I mean, I was outside of, we lived in Weston, Florida. I worked downtown Miami. And with 2 children, that my daughter had just started high school. My son was now in middle school. So brand new schools, brand new house, brand new job, just the 3 of us. And quite frankly, it was a really good experience for me, because I knew in that experience of being just the 3 of us, it also let me know what it was I really, truly wanted. Because for years I had been struggling about, well, do I want to stay in this marriage or not? And at that period, I realized that, I knew what I wanted deep in my heart, but yet, again, is that heart, mind thing, all of it, the soul, the spirit, everything. But I knew I missed Doug. I missed him. And it was the first time I realized that I missed him. And all the years of traveling, and I knew it put the top of the capsule of what I wanted in the marriage and in my relationship with him, with my relationship with the Lord, with my family, that I knew that I did not want to lose this. I always kind of knew, but I was so angry. But it was kind of through that change and that process, and it didn't happen overnight. But so moving to Florida was the best thing that could have ever happened for me, for my family, in every sense of the word. And spiritually, we became stronger, closer. And again, my kids were raised with the gospel. I was raised with the gospel. But it was an opportunity truly to create a Zion with us as a family.
Oh, that is powerful, and thank you for sharing that. The the idea there, hearing of how sometimes it takes, I would say, like, a dramatic experience, or in your case, that separation, not a separation because you were, you know, realigning your, if you're gonna guys gonna be together, but was just that separation makes the heart grow fonder. You realize that love and that connection, and it's fascinating to see as well how, as you were making that journey back to Christ, it wasn't something that happened instantaneously. I think sometimes we read in the scriptures of how people, they make a journey back to Christ, and that happened just right away. But a lot of times it takes years, it takes months, it takes a while, and all things wasn't made right away when you made that decision to come back to Christ. It took, you still follow that path. And I imagine there were, in that story, that experience, where you and Doug had to make that alignment together to look to Christ before the relationship got to where it is today. Am I off on that?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, next week we celebrate our 37th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
And we marvel and are humbled. I mean, he always says to me, he said, that the fact I stayed, but I'm humbled that, quite frankly, he didn't give up either. It takes two to get married, and and it takes one to make a decision to not be married. And so it was definitely a give and take, and it was not easy. When we went through a bankruptcy, we lost a home through that. And we had after effects. We had consequences. Again, still, you can make choices. You have all the free agency, but you can't always necessarily pick your consequences. But yeah, we're very grateful that obviously we were on the other side of that, and we grew stronger together. And it wasn't all peaches and roses either. After we made those transitions, there were also some setbacks. But in those setbacks, I realized that I was spiritually where I needed to be and stronger. And again, we had some more open conversations, and it was, and I was at the right place. But it's okay. All of this is okay, because it's all a part of the journey. It's all a part of the experiences. And, I'm humbled to be talking about this because, again, I work with people on a professional basis about, the front and the image they put together. And people will often tell me when they first meet me that, you've just got it all together. And, I am just trying to do the best I can do in everything. And I am so not perfect at all. I have so many failings. And that is in this past year, has been one of my biggest goals, challenges, objectives, is truly to figure out how to develop Christ-like attributes. And that's where I have been striving to focus. And the biggest one, quite frankly, that I've been working on is showing mercy and grace. And I think you have to start with yourself. And in order to come to Christ and strive in just a little way to be more like Him each day. And so, it's a journey. It's a journey.
That is awesome. Linda, I appreciate you being willing to share this. Where are you at right now with your relationship with Christ and your family? If you were to put that all in a couple sentences.
Oh, a couple sentences. Well, first off, I know that He knows those things that I struggle with. I know that He is my Redeemer, and I know I can look to Him and be comforted and strengthened. I also know in the last almost 5 years, I have lost both my parents, and that was a pretty amazing experience for me, which is another story, another day. But I know that they are close, and that they know what's going on in my life, and that they're also praying for me and my children. And I'm humbled about the relationship I have with each of my children and my daughters in love, and this amazing grandson that is in our life. And my deepest desire is that my children will not forget whose they are and the promises they've made, and even as they struggle, that they might always turn back to the Savior, because I know that that's where true peace is. I know it. And that's where I'm at, Donald. So thank you.
Awesome. Linda, thank you so much for sharing your story. Hopefully someone listening to this today can go through their challenges, can learn, and can see how they too can come back to the fold or come back to Christ. If someone is listening to this, want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to go about doing that, Linda?
Oh, probably reaching out through email. And my email is Linda at LH, as in happy, Yates Consulting.com. So Linda, LINDA at LH, as in happy, Yates is all spelled out, Consulting.com. So thanks,
Awesome.
Donald.
We'll go ahead and put that in our show notes. Linda, thank you so much for taking the time to come on our show, for sharing your story, your journey of changing and coming back onto Christ. Thank you. That was Linda Yates. And if you would like to connect with Linda, you can find her information down below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this or listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or any other podcast platform, just go ahead and scroll down, click on the show notes, and you'll get a chance to connect with Linda and be friends with her. I know that she would definitely appreciate the connection or the outreach, and perhaps you both can help someone that you know in your life come onto Christ. Maybe that individual is you. Now, if you are struggling right now, you're trying to find hope, you're trying to find peace, you're trying to find your way to Christ, we can help. Go ahead and reach out to us. We'll be more than willing to share with you or connect you with some individuals who can help you strengthen your path and your relationship with Christ. As always, I'm here as your host and your guide. I want to help you. I'm changing every single day. I'm not perfect. The stories of the individuals you hear on this podcast, they're continuing to change as well. They're trying to come onto Christ. Let's all work together. Let's all hold hands, so to speak. Let's all guide and help our friends who know not Christ. Let's all make the change fully and turn and follow him. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you. Have a good one.